Last week, if you remember, Jesus was in Capernaum, and he healed the slave or servant of the centurion. But he'd been traveling after that event. He'd been traveling about a day. Nain was about a day's journey from Capernaum. And as he's approaching this village, uh, and by the way, Nain was right there in that region of Shunem. Do you remember Shunem? This is where Elisha healed that, or rather raised that young man up from or young boy up from the grave. So they were very familiar with this story because it happened right in that area where they lived. And whether or not they had the Old Testament scriptures for themselves at that time, I'm not sure. But they were familiar with that story. And so here it is now. This young boy or this young man has died, and he's been carried with the funeral procession out of the city, out to the place where they buried the dead. William Barclay suggests that this story right here is the loveliest of all the stories found in the Gospels. Now, why would that be such a lovely story? This story right here tells us three things. The first thing it tells us is about the bitter, sweet sadness of human life. Just as Jesus was approaching the city, coming out was a funeral procession. And just like in the Old Testament stories, a woman has lost her son, and this woman was a widow. It doesn't tell us what happened to her son, but this woman knew that she was supposed to die before her son dies. Now, many of us, or some of us here, have experienced the death of a child. And we would say, that's not supposed to happen. I'm supposed to go before the child. So you can imagine her grief and despair that she was experiencing because of it. But that wasn't all of it. You see, it's bad enough that she lost her son, but the other thing is she was a widow. And as a widow, of course, she'd already experienced those emotions with the loss of her father. But now her son, but here's the other thing. She was a woman living in a man's world all alone now, with no man to represent her. See, a woman in that day didn't have any legal rights. None at all. She didn't have any status. She was defenseless, helpless, and vulnerable. A woman living in a man's world, a patriarchal society. That's the way it was. So not only was she grieving her loss, but now she was living in fear. Now what am I going to do? How am I going to survive like this? Fear of the unknown. What will happen now? But that's the way life is, isn't it? Bad things happen, and we don't count on those things to happen. But they do. It doesn't have to be death, but that's part of it. Many of us, or some of us, in the last month know what it's like to experience death, to lose that loved one. And all of us probably have experienced it at some point in our life. And if you haven't, you're going to. That's one of the tragic, sad things about life, the life we live. But that's not all. There are other things. It doesn't have to be death. Sometimes we're going through situations. Maybe you're going through a situation at your home. and you don't know how to handle it. You want to do the right thing, but you just can't figure it out. What do I do? We're stuck in a quagmire, it seems. Maybe you found yourself strapped financially. Where in the world do I go now? How do I handle this? Your paycheck is shorter than the time to the end of the month. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger. Our troubles can add up. That is the life that we deal with. Sickness, death, financial issues, things, divorce. Good gracious. That's a terrible thing. That's life. It's a sad thing. But you know what? That's the first thing that this story tells us about the difficulty of life. But then it tells us a second thing. Listen to this. It tells us about the compassion of Christ. God become man. That funeral procession was bad enough. But Jesus saw not just that, but he saw her dire straits. He saw the whole picture. And what does the text say? His heart went out to her. Don't cry, he said. You know, that right there flew in the face of what people thought about in that day. See, grief, there was a lot of Greek influence in that culture. And one of the religions or philosophies was Stoicism. And Stoicism, and it influenced that region. And it says, basically, God doesn't care. Why is that? Because God was all-powerful and nothing could influence God. If God cared about somebody's sorrow and grief, that means he was being influenced something, and God cannot be influenced by anything else. So God is uncaring. But Jesus set that notion aside completely. We see the exact opposite. I like this little phrase right here, shared by the Scottish poet. It goes like this. I forgot to write his name down, believe it or not. But listen to this. It goes, in every pang that rends the heart, the man of sorrows has a part. Listen to that. In every pang that rends a heart. What's rending your heart right now? The man of sorrows. That's our Lord. That's Jesus. He has a part. God does care. The most precious thing to me about our faith, and it's what sets it apart from any other religion. And y'all listen to this. God entered into this world.